Welcome back to From the Wings. Steve's doing a weird face, and we're back after a week off with some interesting Pelican stuff to talk about because, well, the tank went ahead and won 2 games in a row, knocked off the Spurs, the Wemby-less Spurs, twice in a row. De'Aaron Fox probably not happy about that. Chris Paul's certainly not happy about that. And in that run, Zion still incredibly dominant. Kelly Olynyk, the first taste of an actual like versatile creation, pick and pop shooting big. Like he's a C-level version, a B-level version of that, but it's the first time we've ever seen it, and it's tasty. Karlo Matkovic, this is going to be my favorite part of the show. I just bumped the mic. I've loved Karlo for 3 years now. I'm so far down the road on this thing to the point where Steve's going to make those kind of faces at me. But everybody around Pelicans Twitter knows that like I'm one of the originators of the Karlo crazies. I am. I've been on
Karlo crazies.
I've been on this boat for a while. So we're going to talk about him, and then to close the show out, I really want to get into a little bit of expectation setting, a little bit of overview, preview of next season, just kind of a lens to keep for the rest of this season. I want to talk about who that's currently on this roster is already on it next year, and who's kind of meh. Steve, how you doing today?
I'm doing fine. My allergies aren't like cooperating, but other than that, I'm good. No complaints.
I'm trying to adjust to a hat style that's not necessarily for me, but you can understand why I'm wearing it for obvious reasons. And with that, we'll get to the new ad read.
I think you look good.
Thank you. It's a little hipster for me, but what are you going to do? And it'll fit better if I get highly satisfied by a Crescent 9 THC seltzer. We're thrilled to be presented by Crescent Canna, New Orleans' #1 cannabis company, makers of the highly satisfying Crescent 9 THC seltzer. With uplifting and relaxing effects, Crescent 9 is my favorite drink to enjoy while watching the Pelicans. Y'all know I have a preference. I have a way I do this. For me, like late night sleep aid, chillax kind of thing. You've heard my favorite flavor 100 times, sour watermelon. Proud to say, sour watermelon now available in 5 milligram cans. We've beat the system, people. We have beat the man. 4 new flavors in the 5 milligram variety coming to a shelf near you at all of your local grocers, smoke shops, gas stations, all of those things. It's going to be everywhere that you've ever seen it before. And now you get to enjoy my favorite sour watermelon, which honestly, the 5 milligram hits for me. So like that just means I get a full can of my favorite flavor. But the raspberry lime, formerly available in the 50 milligram, now a 5, also added to the list, grape lemonade and strawberry pineapple. So we got some interesting flavors coming out. We got a new array of Crescent 9 THC seltzers that you can get at just about any place that sells any sort of alcoholic or THC beverage or any of that paraphernalia. Please be 21 or older when consuming, and consult your doctor if you have any medical conditions or are taking any medications before consuming a cannabis product. Steve, are you aware that the world's fastest baby was inside of the Pelicans, the Smoothie King Center, in our first game against the Spurs?
Yeah,
the world's fastest baby.
Now here's the thing, right? Baby race is one of my favorite things to view, consume. It sounds odd, but just stick with me, because these things go off the rails very quickly, and there are different strategies. We see stuff, toys, snacks. We see contenders emerge and immediately stop, and hey, why am I here? We see friendships formed, and then rivalries develop. This baby had no time for any of that. This baby was gone, out of there, knew the assignment, accomplished it in a way that I've never seen before. That baby has a scholarship offer.
No doubt. There were tweets immediately. I saw names like Crawl Lewis Crawl Lewis.
Crawl Lewis.
Come on now. Crawl Lewis. I now need this baby to grow up to be an Olympian. I need it. That story, I can like already picture NBC Sports telling me about how this tiny child just blitzed the competition in a baby race at an NBA game all these years ago, and now he's America's fastest sprinter. Like, I just need it. I need that to happen. And the wildest thing for me, like the dad in me goes to, what were they holding? How did they motivate this child? Just a sippy cup. That's it. That child just really, really loves the sippy cup. Anyway, guys, if you have not seen that video, go take a look, because that child is lightning.
The cameraman wasn't even ready. Lining up the shot, like, oh yeah, we got all the babies. Who's gonna go? Baby's gone.
We've all seen these so many times. Like, this is always, for the producers, this is the fear of, oh God, this should only take 10 minutes. What if this takes 30 minutes? Like, this is a scary thing because you cannot control the response timing of these little children. Normally, like, you get them all out. One of them sits still and one of them crawls forward and stops. And one of them like goes off the path and goes like towards the crowd. And then one of them goes really fast and gets up there and like creates a little suspense and then stops. And in this case, Crawl Lewis decided to just fly from one end to the other and leave everyone in their dust and just like make it not a competition. And you know what? Stun on them. Do it. Stun on them. Don't hold back. You know, nobody should. Nobody ever should. Do not suppress your light because other people can't hang. All right. So good for that little baby. And now we can talk about some actual basketball things. You know, this is maybe getting a little boring for people. Zion just casually crushing everyone. The per minute stuff is insane. But very specifically, we had a fun stat get pulled out of Synergy by Owen Phillips. And it's that in the history of tracking data, which I think goes back to 2013, no one has been double teamed more than Zion Williamson at about 28%. The next closest person is not at 20%. And that's pretty wild. And on a visual, it's very stark. Some might say, but you didn't like that. Yeah, that was too far. Okay. Anyway, Steve, Zion gets doubled every time he breathes. And that screams to me that we've talked about, like we've said 1,000 times, that he has a gravitational force that you only see in a handful of players. But clearly, it's not even a handful of players. It's a gravitational force all his own. You should be able to construct an offense around that easier than we have. Yes?
Oh, what do you mean by that? Because I feel like they have.
Well, so we've had a lot of inconsistencies. You know, we have things running now, like, and maybe this all comes down to health, and maybe that's what your answer will be. We have struggled waffling between point Zion, point guard next to Zion, not so point guard next to Zion, pile of semi-initiators. And the rhythm is very up and down. The production is very up and down. The consistency is up and down. Something that's become a hallmark across multiple years. The start of games, very slow. That starting five tends to struggle with offensive output. Mm-hmm. And that's 2 years running now, regardless of personnel. And then classic, Jose comes in off the bench. It was Jose and Najee last year, and all of a sudden things spark up. But that, I just look at that gravitational force and think about what that does to a defense. And I feel like it should be easier to consistently get good looks for everybody with a guy that demands that much attention. And so I'm just curious.
You're not wrong. Oh, good.
Do we like the blend of like, is it better now than it has been in the past? Am I wrong entirely? Like, about the consistency? Is that just like, this is just the NBA and things are going to go up and going to go down because everybody's great?
No. So what I was going to say is because of how Zion is playing this season, and especially with some of the lineup changes, which I'll touch on here in a second, you do have more of a blend. This is a season where you can move Zion across the board a little bit more. He can get up and go in transition. He can be a screener. You can put the ball in his hands. You can post him up. You can get him an elbow catch. So there's different things you can do. You can get him involved in movement. You're starting to see more of that, which is a positive of this season for the Pelicans. You are not in the position you want to be, but that allows you to be more like you can experiment more, which is Zion Williamson, Kelly Olynyk, Yves Missy, CJ McCollum, Trey Murphy starting together. You can do that in a season like this to see what it looks like and allow Zion the room to have the ball in his hands and be the quote-unquote primary creator. Now, Willie Green can tell me Zion's the one. No one else can tell me that Zion's the one in that lineup. I just want you to know that, including you. All right. At best, he's the 3. All right.
This is incredibly reminiscent for us of the Anthony Davis is not our center that we did for 4 years. Look, guys see themselves a certain way, and then you massage their personality and you massage their ego and you tell them that they're playing a position. And maybe sometimes that's true. Maybe 3 out of 10 possessions that's true. But yeah, no, he's not the one. He's a part-time one. We got to come up with a new way to define that. Because I think that's a whole thing. Is like, how do you define? He's not gonna cover the point guard. He's not gonna bring the ball up the floor every single time. It's kind of turning into like where soccer is, not to take you down a Nikias pathway, but modern soccer, you have a center forward who's your scorer, your striker, and a lot more nowadays. You got a lot more of the Messi and Mbappe thing where your primary scorer is out on the wings. And sometimes he slides in and becomes a forward. And sometimes he shifts all the way to the other wing. You play across the front of the offense. You play all the positions as needed. And I think that's more like, if you defined a one that way, it's more like he is part of the backcourt. Like I would take that. He is part of the backcourt, and sometimes he flexes into the 4. Every once in a blue moon, flexes to the 5. He has no position. Positionless basketball. We're back.
I think to your other point where you said, hey, should it be easier to do it? He has to be available. And so the more he's available, the more you can build things around it. But you can't do the Zion offense without Zion, because who is going to be the Zion person in those plays? You can have the best sales strategy, Adam. If your top salesperson is only there 2 days a week, probably doesn't work as well as if they're there all the time. And that's not Zion's fault. It's not Willie Green's fault. It's just how it works sometimes. You know what I mean? If we're on the debate team and our ace plays soccer as well, so they're here 1 every 5 competitions, guess what? We probably have to do something different than rely on Jessica to bring us home.
And that brings up like one of the primary like targets for criticism for Willie from those who are, ready to move on, is the quote unquote lack of versatility, the lack of adaptability of scheme and offense specifically. Yeah. Oh, this is the most popular take. No, most popular take around here with people that are done with Willie is that he is not adaptable, and that his offense does not change. And so that's why when Zion does go out, that things do fall apart, because they don't coach better.
You made a run with Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum, and Jonas Valanciunas based on the movement that he put in, and then the movement got better. What do you mean? What are you saying to me? He's not adaptable. How are you not adaptable when no one's there?
That's my primary argument. That's my primary argument back against it is I don't know how you take this and throw the availability of these guys in his craw and then say like, yeah, totally his problem. Quick step back. I'll do this real fast and we'll get out of here because this is not even on the outline. The Willie conversation. as somebody who has been in management now for the last 6 years and has hired and terminated people, it is incredibly hard. Like, just put on the management hat. It's incredibly hard to look at this season and use it in any way to judge whether or not Willie should still be here. Whether or not he is the Zion coach, like, is the person that should stay. I think it's a very easy topic. We have a lot of casual basketball fans in the city. I have a lot of friends who don't watch every game. The first thing they say to me when we lose is like, when are they going to fire that coach? You know where they get that from? They get it from football. It's the easiest, it's the lowest common denominator thing to do. Hey, I don't like my team. What can I do? Is there something I can change? Oh yeah, I can fire this one guy that's like in my face. And if I get rid of him, I can feel better. The next guy might be terrible, but I'll make myself feel better. So, we'll fire the next guy if that one doesn't work. I do not think that there is a great argument for or against the decision for next year and long term. I don't think there's a great pile of evidence to say that it has to be him. I definitely don't think there's great evidence to say it can't be him. And I would like to just see him have the key players available for any stretch of time before making the decision. Just as a manager, I would like to see him have Zion for the 65 games that Stan got and see what that looks like, because this guy has been able to create defense out of anything, and not just defense, but top 10 defense out of anything. And if the guy from the double team chart that's scoring over a point a minute gets to play on a team with a top 10 defense, that feels pretty good. That feels like a good bet. I'm also just I'm a believer that there are 5 or 6 coaches in the NBA that are needle movers on situational offense, ATOs, and things like that can dynamically change games and change playoff matchups. I think there's a lot of people in the middle that do a great job, but if you switched them all, there'd be some slightly different method, but they all have about the same rate of return on this play worked, this play didn't, this guy executed, this guy didn't. So I just don't see that. I don't see the imperative either. Who's that hot name that you're going to get that's going to make you feel better about your situation? I don't know of one. I guess if I was reaching, I'd say Nate Oates at Alabama is maybe somebody that I could see them swinging on.
You want oatmeal?
I'm just throwing it out there. He's high paced, putting a lot of guys in the NBA, has worked with a lot of guys that have been through the organization. The former Erie Bayhawks, now Birmingham Squadrons, former coach, is on his bench after working with the Pelicans for a couple of years. So just, Avery Johnson ties to Alabama. There's just a lot in the Alabama sauce for the Pelicans. That's just me. That's not reporting or anything like that. That's just, if I had to hypothesize, I would guess they'd give him a call. But I'm not there yet. And I think most fans would want me to be there. A lot of people are like, you won't talk about Willie. You won't say anything bad. Sorry, I don't know why I did that voice. I just did a trailer park voice. I just shifted into, you got to get rid of Willie. I don't know why. It's right there. And I just did it.
Okay, so who's that person's favorite player?
Who's this person's favorite player?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I got to find a white. So probably Kelly Olynyk. He's made of the right stuff. You can tell he brings his lunch pail. He's a hard worker all the way back to Zaga.
So they went from Jeremiah Robinson Earl to Kelly Olynyk in 2 weeks?
Look, so let's talk about that. So let's get into Olynyk. So this is actually a good transition, because the next thing we wanted to talk about is the first look of Olynyk. And we had Larry Nance doing some things when he was here, being an offensive hub, being the guy that is the zone breaking passer that'll either shoot that free throw line shot or draw attention and make the play out of it. He was also a great passer out of the short roll. That was Larry's thing. And it was the reason to convince yourself when the offense was bad from him to stick with it, because he gave you something that other guys couldn't give you. they started playing with JRE doing the same things. And I think we just kind of know the level of player he is at the moment. He makes these faces when I criticize people. I'm sorry. Jeremiah Robinson Earl is not a good basketball player. He is an NBA level player for someone. And he's a great like energy tweener, small power forward guy. But can't really shoot that well and doesn't really do, just kind of is in the right place a lot. Like does what I tell him to, just not well. So like that's cool. Like A student on effort, C student on grades. So Kelly Olynyk comes here, starts doing some of the same things, and boy, does it look different. It looks pretty wild. And there's this added piece, which odd for Kelly Olynyk. One of the criticisms of Kelly Olynyk in past stops is like, oh, well, he's a big, but the rebounding like should be better than it is for his size. But it's because he plays out on the 3-point line, which we've seen that create difficulty for a lot of people. Miles Turner notably has like 4 and 5 rebound games because he lives outside, lives as a help defender, trying to shut off the rim. Olynyk, back-to-back double-digit rebound games, seems like he's getting them over the top of everybody, and we are all ready to extend this man already.
I thought you were going to take a dig at Jaren Jackson Jr. there.
No, I don't.
Okay,
My fault. This every time.
My
I
bad.
feel like I've been giving you a lot of Memphis grief for weeks now, and it just felt like I could go a different route.
I respect it. Now, to peel the curtain back for the viewers and the listeners, developing chemistry is very fun because I really wasn't even mad. But the fact that my face can draw a rant is something you should not have told me. And I will not use it for good. I just want you to know that. To Kelly Olynyk, right? Kelly Olynyk is a basketball player. And that sounds mean and that sounds basic, but it's not. He just goes out there and play. Like he's the type of player that if you're playing pickup, you are going to text him probably first or second to be like, hey, are you coming on Saturday? And if you play with them enough, you might not go if they're not. Oh, I guess I'm out. I'll just go lift or something. I think a lot of what you want from the Pelicans offense when it comes like ball movement and player movement, he just gets to. And, you know, I never want to go too crazy, but there was a play in the first game against San Antonio. I think CJ brought the ball up the court. Looked like he was going to go tween Hezzy, kind of tripped, threw it to Kelly. Kelly was like, here you go. You can have the ball back. Now, after he did that, he saw Trey Murphy in the right corner and was like, hey, I'm just going to set a screen for you. This is not a call. This is not a set. This is just Kelly Olynyk playing basketball. And so he goes to set a screen. In San Antonio, because they were doing different things, Chris Paul trying to guard someone that's not Zion Williamson for the majority of time, they're pointing a switch. And Kelly Olynyk's like, oh, this is space. You know, CJ hit Zion at the elbow while this is happening. Kelly sees the space. He dives. And the Spurs are like, hey, can someone get that tall man? Mainly Chris Paul pointing and say, hey, someone grab that guy. Trey Murphy sees this. He also cuts. Zion hits Trey Murphy for a dunk. That's created off Kelly's cutting and, you know, the gravity of Zion, et cetera, et cetera. But those are the type of plays you get from Kelly Olynyk. He knows how to space. He's a willing passer. He's a willing mover. And so appreciate Kelly Olynyk before you get to the point where you're upset about the things that Kelly Olynyk doesn't do is what I would hope for Pelicans fans.
I think we have a good background for this. I think we're not gonna let you down on this one.
Are you sure? Because the way you guys did Ryan Anderson hurt my feelings.
Well, so I mean, Kelly's a little different from Ryan Anderson, but we still hold Ryan Anderson in incredibly high regard, and we will forever because you know how we got him? Gustavo Ayón. We will never forget that we got Ryan Anderson from the Magic for Gustavo Ayón. And so he could do no wrong here. Like, yeah, it got a little tough at the end, and then we saddled Houston with him. Like, that was the whole thing because that contract got a little crazy because he made all those threes. But I mean, he's a hero here. No one speaks of him poorly. In this situation with Kelly specifically, one, we have the fact that he is he'll get some casual attention because of his complexion. He'll get some casual basketball fandom attention. I'm just saying it like it is. He will get some fandom from that. The other place he will get his fandom from when it comes to like me and my people is the fact that like he's a guy we've always thought was fun because on every roster he's been on, he's done things that bigs can't do.
Mm-hmm.
He's created plays and had a versatility that can go out to the 3-point line. Like he will shoot an unguarded three. The other thing about him is he doesn't take bad shots ever. He takes what's in front of him, and sometimes that means his offense like is barely part of the game because it's just not there that night, and you might want him to be a little more forceful. But I think he fills a gap in the 4-5 for us that we've had for so long, that I think the thirst level we have right now for somebody to distribute, to be able to like play with the ball in their hand and be able to make a multitude of choices on a closeout. I think it's something that we've wanted for a while. And I think people view him very, very differently. Like we think of him like a center. We don't think of him like Brandon Ingram. Like I know in the back of your mind, you're like, but you have Brandon Ingram. Like Brandon Ingram's 6'10" and can do everything. This is a guy that's like a role player who's going to be a role player that's going to do things from a traditional setup that we haven't had it. It's a skill upgrade over the guys that have tried to do this hub creation, that have tried to do this elbow stuff. The fact that he's respected in the corner and what that does to the floor when Zion's out there and Trey's out there, all of a sudden creating a little breathing room for Missy to exist on the same floor as Zion. I think it's all intriguing. I'm kind of sold. This is also like the benefit of having a 33-year-old. And one of the things that you have to take with that is that like tall and 33 plus, the wheels could fall off at any point. He has had injuries in the past. So, something to keep in mind while our fandom becomes rampant is that, this could be a blip, but we've needed something like this alongside Zion for a really long time. And in a very, very, very quick manner, it looks very good. And it also looks like very familiar to a style of player who's also on the roster that we're going to talk about in a few minutes here.
Well, before we get to that, two things. Number one, this feels like, and you can just take your choice. This feels like Mirotic erasure, Dante Cunningham erasure, or Jason Smith erasure. I'm going to quickly move past that.
It is absolutely Dante Cunningham erasure. It is absolutely erase him.
Wow.
Erase him.
All right, number two. So whenever Kelly Olynyk is spacing and, hitting cutters and dribble handoff, that's a thirst trap for Pelican fans?
Yes, absolutely. 100% without a doubt, unanimous across the fan base.
Okay.
I like to let you know these things because like you're gonna see things and you're gonna be like, oh, that's why they responded that way. Because they've been like, this has been like a conversation piece for 5-6 years. Oh, it's like Mirotic, yeah, the spacing was respected, but the ability to do anything with the ball off those closeouts, Mirotic will remain famous because like Mirotic has a place in our hearts forever because we lost Boogie and he saved our season. And he gave us one of the memorable playoff matchups that we've ever had. I was there for those home games. There's still video on my phone. I have never been more elated watching Pelicans basketball than that Portland series. And they just could not deal. They could not deal. And I'll never understand it. I think Terry Stotts is a great coach and should be a head coach again. And at the same time, I'm sitting here like, why didn't you just do like a second DHO or kick it back out to Dame higher and like keep trying to get back to it, make them defend it a second and third time? Why was the high hedge working so easily? And then like Nurk can't roll faster than Mirotic? Anyways, we're going back in time now. I'm just never, it's going to astound me forever that for 4 straight games that a Mirotic high hedge above the 3-point line shut down Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. And it just did game after game after game after game. Nurk couldn't roll fast enough. When he did, he'd like not catch the ball. It was the wildest thing. Drew's just hitting threes left and right. Like Boston Drew now is who he was in that series. Because he was given, as Griff famously said around here, Permission to dominate.
There we go.
Anyway. So yeah, we're thirsty for what Olynyk does, and it's looked really good in this short stint. We have also seen the Bruce Brown stuff is very evident now. The holdouts, I think, have now witnessed this is the Bruce Brown stuff, especially after last night's game. Bruce Brown is just kind of good at everything. Does he have the elite thing? Not necessarily. He's kind of in the Etwan Moore body of like he's a guard, but he's a wing. Like we're using him as a wing, but he's 6'5". Like it's kind of like that tweener thing where we're going to stick him at the 3. We're going to stick him at the 2, but he can kind of do a lot. And having that dude anywhere near the ball handler as the off ball defender, scary stuff. Scary stuff. Because if he is within arm's reach of you, whether you're De'Aaron Fox, Chris Paul, whoever, ball's probably coming out. And De'Aaron Fox felt that pain over and over again last night with him and Zion. And so that was fun. We'll talk about him a little later. Anything to wrap up the Olynyk talk? Do you think should we chill out, or can we just enjoy the ride here on Olynyk? We got him. He's here next year, like no doubt. That $12 million play basketball in New Orleans.
No, you should enjoy him. Enjoy him. And I think you understand the fit and the vision next to Zion, what he can do with Trey Murphy, chemistry with CJ. Like, I think there's a lot of players he can play with and a lot of offense that he can uplift. So just enjoy it. I'm with you.
And in that respect, maybe in like Star Wars lore almost, maybe he's got himself a little Padawan here. But that goes by the name of Karlo Matkovic.
Mm-hmm.
Because Karlo has a similar style of game. Kind of always has. Unrefined, unpolished. Sometimes runs really well. Sometimes, there's just a lot of basketball to learn there. Karlo is still like very fairly inexperienced. But I will say again, and I will continue to say over and over again, that I have been watching this dude play basketball since he was playing for Olympia in 2022. Because for whatever reason, like I got a wild hair. And I was like, I'm going to keep tabs on the second round pick Euro stash guy. I'm just going to see what's going on over there. And very quickly it was like, oh, his team sucks and this league sucks, but he's pretty good. Like there. So my questions immediately became like, he's dunking on people. He's shooting over people. Like the variety of his game is like something that we would be thirsty for, but you just have no idea relative athleticism wise, league to league. Is this stuff really going to play? So then we get middle of last year and, we'd slip the word in January. Hey, Pelicans are going to bring Karlo over to the States and move him over from Europe. Now, at the time, do I want to take that and say like this is belief in Karlo and they're gonna give this dude a shot? Sure, I do. What was it really? His team sucked and his season was over. So it was like, hey, we got this guy. We may as well plug him in at Beham and let him play a little bit. And then he got to Beham, and I have recently dogged the G League. And here's part of why. Karlo dominated the G League. Absolutely dominated the G League in the minutes he played there. I was like, he doesn't fit in this league. This league doesn't do anything for him. He's getting away with the stuff he should be punished for that he did in Europe. He's getting away with it here too. So I'm like, okay, this is not a good enough test. Now my next question is, what does Summer League look like? Well, what does Karlo do? Karlo goes and tears Summer League apart. And I'm like, okay, we've passed another bar. This guy's got to get a real contract. Now, conversation starts. Oh, he's going to get the contract. It's just a tax thing. It's just like a cap thing. He's just they put him on the end of the roster. They need to fill out a roster slot, and he's there, and it's convenient, and they can get a tax break on it. So, he's just funny money.
Not crypto.
Yeah, he's just funny money. Old Coinbase out here is just hanging out on the end of the bench. And then, it's been a couple years now. Like I've been tweeting about him for a little over a year, like before this year. And I was just like letting friends know in text and stuff like, hey, like this dude's got a lot of stuff. Like he's going to get pushed around, but he's got like surprising amount of athleticism, and his offensive game is kind of versatile. It's a little bit all over the place. Like if he can polish up some of this stuff, this plays. Like this style of big, if he can find an NBA level to this dude plays. Like he's got enough size and athleticism for this to work. And we didn't get the minutes. Like I wanted to see the minutes early on. Like I was wondering after that summer league, like can he fight Missy for those initial minutes? Like can one of them break in? And Missy was the one that kind of took that spotlight. And Karlo kind of went to the end of the bench. And that was the end of that. Karlo was just like off to the side. Then we move on from Daniel Tice, get under the tax, move on from Brandon Ingram, and we enter the more tankerific part of the season. And Karlo's getting run. And Karlo getting run, it's looking pretty good. Karlo basically blocks 2 shots every single game. And Karlo's getting respected at the 3-point line in ways that are really fun. I will call attention to a play that happened in the first San Antonio game. A beautiful Zion Trey pick and roll action, run a little bit like the above the elbow, so the right arc. Trey comes out, sets the screen. Devin Vassell's glued to Trey, and Biyombo is matched up on Zion. And they get a lot of choices, and I think it's Justin Champagnie that's in the corner. But if I told you that Trey Murphy and Zion were going to run a pick and roll, Zion's got the ball in his hands, Trey's coming to set the screen. Trey's either going to leak out or he's going to roll, knowing Trey is going to leak. And my corner spacers, on the strong side, I have one CJ McCollum. And on the weak side, I have Karlo Matkovic. And then Jose floating in the other wing. Would you say that, like, as far as 5 out goes and a pick and roll look like that, does that sound like a decent setup to you? Would you expect that end product to be a positive one?
I do.
Boy, was it.
Well, you liked that, didn't you? That the payoff. Was that the payoff for you?
Oh my God. The fact that Karlo was respected, guarded out to the 3-point line, and then is a respected lob threat as well. And that lob threat, that trail down the baseline, was the 4th option on that play. I just haven't gotten to see plays like that. Like that is something that could be run at the end of games that defenses just do not have an answer for. Because how this played out, like you're going to have to try different personnel. Biyombo cannot stay with Zion because basically no one can. But Biyombo's got to make a choice. I got to throw my body at him, or I got to try and take his space away. Biyombo kind of like ends up in no man's land. Zion first step to the right is going to go around Biyombo. Trey leaking out to the top of the arc. And of course, Vassell cannot leave him. So Vassell stays glued. So there's no help coming from that screen. You're not getting the screen defender is not coming. So now I have the strong side corner and CJ McCollum in the corner. What are you going to do? Justin Champagnie's going to leave McCollum? No, absolutely not. So what does that mean? Zion just runs right to the basket completely unconfronted, and like a half-hearted Keldon Johnson ends up, watching him land from the rim as he puts it in. And Karlo is racing right behind him. Like Karlo kept Keldon out of the play. There was no double team to be had. And for Zion, who gets triple teamed in most games, for there to be a play where he couldn't even get doubled, I mean, it tickled me. I liked it. I liked it a lot.
I'm trying desperately not to burst your bubble.
Burst it. I dare you.
Well, the first time I saw him play, is that Daniel Tice?
And his free throws. So take that back.
But I mean, I think the thing with Karlo, I think he has a really good burst about him too. So like the shooting pops, but his ability to roll to the rim is fun. Like he knows how to get to the role very quickly. So it's not 2 feet plant, then I open everything up. Like, it's a lot of slips, but it's also gone. So it's like, oh, okay, that popped to me. And it's like, well, if we're talking about a lot better spacing, that certainly helps, because defenses, eventually, oh, wait, that guy keeps going and they throw it to him and he can jump. We should probably help. Now, the 3-point shooting, how many is he going to make? When do teams realize it? When do teams stop respecting him?
Mm-hmm.
That's always where I start to evaluate a player, and it's not their fault. Like, we take the good, and I think he's shown a lot, especially during the stint, and this is what you want if you're the Pelicans in this kind of season. But there's the old adage, you got to update the scouting report. I said it a lot with Trey Murphy III as he was rising. Like, y'all should probably update the scouting report. And for you and the From the Wing listeners, I will kind of describe a little bit what that means. So there's time where maybe I had a job working to do things that sound like this in the NBA.
Coach's Notebook Talk with Steve Jones.
And there was, scouting reports kind of evolve through time. You add, you refresh, it is what it is. And there are certain players where, I don't know if you watch this guy, I don't think you quite understand what this player could do. You might want to put this in a different way, because that was last year, where like drives left a lot more, shoots a lot more, can do a lot more things. So, what happens when Karlo becomes a 4 to 5 bullet point type guy, and not just raw athletic potential, will shoot, rolls hard? What happens when it gets updated a little bit?
Can create from the nail. Yeah. He look, and I'll temper my, like, as much as I love Karlo, people have wanted me to be like more like, in today's age, you're supposed to take the take as far as you can. And I have never been like, Karlo needs to start or anything like that, or like Karlo needs to get extended. I've never been there. I have always believed, I've believed since 22 that he could make a team. Making the team this year was like a little conditional. We were in a salary cap situation where it was beneficial to add him. We were very thin at the center position, and maybe he got it in some ways off the steam of the issues around the build of the team, and not because he played his way into it. However, now it's real. Now this guy is a guy who can play. And while I respect the fact that the scouting report will absolutely change, I'm looking at him as like the guy who's an option in the front court rotation. And I still think he's going to get a lot of defense from backups and from guys that aren't the most equipped. So you're going to have to make some choices. And I'm intrigued by the fact, I think he's going to close games? Like that play I was talking about was at the end of a game. Mm-hmm. He was in there in like the closing minutes because it had gone well previously. He was part of the comeback, and Willie likes to let that ride. And so do I think he's going to close games for the Pelicans for the next 2 years? That's not what I'm saying. No. But it is very, very intriguing that it's looked like it has. And I think there's an opportunity to firm up some of the gaps. Like defensively, there's a lot of mess with him. He's going to get pushed around a lot. He's not the strongest guy in the world. He's not like a supreme athlete. He's got a shocking first step, I think. And he's got a verticality that I think people will need to adjust to, because the lob thread is real. That first step, that pivot is fast. But like full blown lateral speed, he hustles like hell. He works his ass off to get down the floor, which he needs to. But he'll get pushed around. There will be problems. There will be switches that give him problems. If a guy gets a strong body anywhere near the rim, he's not the guy that's going to shut that down. They're going to go through him. But as a rotational big in a world where I have Zion Williamson, I want as many of Zion's different variety of rotations that he plays throughout the game. When if he stays in and some of the backup unit comes in, I want there to always be a big of that style out there to just make things more difficult to body up on him. And so I am intrigued by having Olynyk and Karlo on the same team if Karlo can advance these skills a little bit, because I think that more than, and not to dog my rookie of the year, Eve Missy, they do things that Missy can and isn't going to do. And I think there are already some question marks about Missy plus Zion and what that looks like. I think it's very interesting to have Kelly plugged in there at the 4 and try to figure that stuff out, because Missy plays really hard and does close off the rim really, really well. But there's a lot to go for him too. He's got to put on weight. He's got to put on strength. Like he's getting pushed around too, because he's not the hugest center in the world, but he's really athletic. He had a wild dunk last night where there's just a great timing feed on a cut from Bruce. Bruce just found him as he's running down the floor, caught him in stride. One hand takes off from just inside the free throw line, dunks it. And it's just like a thing of athletic beauty from a center. There's just not many centers that can dunk it from that far out and never put the ball on the ground and just catch it in stride like that fluidly. But yeah, I just like it. Things are going my way on this take. Things are going to go my way on this take. He's going to make this team. And he's got his contract for next year, but I think this is somebody you actually want to keep. I think him and Brandon Boston are finds. I think they are rotational finds, and you want to find out more. That's it. That's all. I might get a little gassed up next year. I might be in here next year being like, hey, I don't know. He might need to start. I don't know. Maybe.
Next year. I give you till next week. You deserve this moment, and I'm going to let you have it. But I feel like you're going to be a Karlo maniac for. It's
a weird thing to I don't know why I got hooked on this guy and the story of will this guy make it? But yeah, he was beating all the stops. He was beating the competition everywhere he was, and now he's put the athleticism on the floor against real NBA players and against starters. Does that mean he's going to survive against starters? Probably not. Most of these guys do not. But if I get my Chris Boucher that just gets to be a reliable backup center for a long ass time for my team, and I just know that that's cemented. Okay, cool. We never have that. I'm not calling him Chris Boucher and the style, but having a guy that's just on your team for 10 years that just locks down one of your spots in the front court seems like a cool thing to have. I'm just, that's what it ends up being. I'd be completely content with that.
I mean, you did have Jason Smith.
Look, you can try and dog that name out over here. People love that man.
No, I'm just saying.
People love that man. That man could run for office over here and win. Him and Ryan Bowen. Go look into Ryan Bowen and them two in the knee braces. Hustle Kings. Anyway, not to go farther into that. We've done that bit enough. All right, let's talk about this. So I just said, I kind of let the cat out of the bag here, that I believe that Brandon Boston, who is now officially, as of halftime last night, been converted to an actual NBA contract that has a termination option for next season, as reported by friend of the show, Schmidt Dua. They will likely opt out to be able to give him a longer extension, because right now he is locked into, if they sign him this year, he can only get a 2-year deal. They opt out next year, they can give him a longer deal and make him a real player. So that will likely happen. Brandon Boston has finally found a stop. We've talked about this, where he gets to see a lot of the ball. He gets a lot of run, and it looks really promising. He does stuff defensively where in some games he looked like your best point of attack defender. He's in a wing-sized body for real with athleticism that's surprising, and has a killer instinct that you don't normally find in guys that are secondary or tertiary scoring options. And he bails us out a lot on late clock situations when plays break down. That's all fun stuff to have. It's very Brandon Ingram light, but I think that style of player is easier to consume as a role player, as a light usage version, and it's been good. So he'll be here. Currently under contract for next year. A lot of people. Okay, so when you're doing all your builds and adding people to this roster and fantasizing about what the rest of this year is, DeJounte Murray is here. Trey Murphy is here. Herb is here. Zion is here. Olynyk is going to be here on that number, and maybe gets a mild extension. I honestly, I would like to tack a year or two onto that thing right now. CJ still here. Everybody can go debate that one, go fight that one all they want. Everybody's probably fantasizing that he's going to be out in the summer. I'm going the other way. I think CJ is fairly cemented, and I'm just going to keep telling you. And when that turns out right, if I turn out wrong, rub it in my face. When I turn out right, coming for all of you. Jose is obviously here. Jose is probably going to be the heartbeat of this team for as long as he plays basketball. This is a guy that, because of his size, a lot of very similar to how Tyus Jones got typecasted for a little while and got to stay in one place for a long time because the league doesn't bring the market value necessary to extract him. I think Jose is going to be a similar thing. I think the highs will be higher for us than they will be for other teams. I was honestly surprised. I wanted to see for him, I would have been intrigued by a Milwaukee coming in and being a player for Jose at the deadline. And that's just selfishly for Jose and wanting to see his energy and effort get to reward him. But I also just never want to lose him because we're emotionally attached. Brandon Boston, obviously here. 3 people are under contract for next year, but have a questionable situation. Those people, one of which, I think the one that's going to get me booed, as Steve always says, Jordan Hawkins.
Oh.
Jordan Hawkins is on the final year of his rookie deal next year with an option to extend. And he is going to be it's going to be a convenience thing. The number is fine right now. The number is solid, for what he does. I think that's he's at market value currently for what he's able to do for you. When it comes to the conversation over an extension and whether to even do it, it really depends what the market tells him. Because if somebody's in there for, I don't know, $20 million in a world where, just to make people aware, our future cap situation, Rose Rule maxes are going to be $60 million a year. We're talking about 20 million not being the 20 million of 2 years ago. So maybe somebody comes with 18 or 20 for Hawkins as a reclamation pick. I'm going to redraft him onto my team because I believe there's more there. Maybe there's somebody that does that. If anybody comes anywhere near that stuff, wants to do more than the MLE for him, I don't see it. I do not see it. I do believe that Karlo, specifically Karlo and Reeves, are on minimum numbers. Karlo has significantly outplayed that minimum. He is here. And they're probably going to figure out a way to give him a real contract. I would guess. Reeves, I think, is a lot more up in the air. He has done what you asked. You have not seen the multi-level scoring that you saw at Kentucky. You've seen a lot of the standstill three-point shot, and that's a lot of the situation he's in and when he's playing and who he's playing with. He's just kind of the outlet guy. And he's done that well. He has not been afraid to shoot that thing. We haven't gotten to see much guard development there. We'll find out in this stretch. Is there any sort of ball skills we haven't seen at Kentucky, like we see famously with Kentucky guards, was mashed in there with a bunch of guys that needed the ball. And so we didn't see he actually has skills that he does have. Maybe we find out some of that. Maybe we find out that there's he gets to these closeouts and he drives around them a little bit more than he does right now. I think those are the 3 guys that are more on the fence. I think of those, I'm side-eyeing Hawkins. I think all 3 of them are on the team, honestly. I think the Hawkins situation is very up in the air. I don't think there's a lot of evidence to say that you need to go out of your way to retain. But that'll be a question for next year. Yeah, he don't like this, and Steve doesn't like when I talk like this. And then, of course, you have to place in about $8 or $9 million in there for the high lottery pick that the Pelicans are going to have. Hopefully we land in, the 2 or 3 slot. Definitely don't want to land 6 or later. Maybe we get a Flag or a Harper in there. Then the question's Bruce. I'll pause before Bruce. Anything, Steve? I've made you make a lot of facial expressions while saying those things. Anything before I get to Bruce's situation?
Nope. I wanted to let you fly with that take.
Yep. All right. Gonna let me get booed alone, huh? Real team player. Okay. All right. So Bruce Brown, wonderful game last night. Showed you all the Bruce Brown things. And so now if a Pelicans fan didn't know, now you know. If you don't know, now you know. Bruce does everything. Bruce can flip games with his energy, with his turnovers, with his havoc. And he just kind of like, he's an interesting player when the team is set up well and he's the fourth or fifth best guy in that five, you're going to do good things. And that's not common for the Pelicans. Having him be in a situation where there's not 2 or 3 guys playing with him, like he was playing in these backup units in the first game that he played with us, where it was like, I don't know what's happening here. And also he's like, he just got here. Different system, different terminology, different guys want balls in different spots. Olynyk adjusted a little faster. Bruce is a free agent at the end of this year. Bruce's current contract number represents about the entirety of the Pelicans' apron room if he is not retained. So essentially, Bruce's space plus the MLE is like what the Pelicans have to work with next year. As of right now, there are probably only 2 free agents in this upcoming class that are more valuable than Bruce to people. And they might not even be. It depends who the viewer is. We have heard that Naz Reid is going to opt out. He's going to reject his play. He's going to turn down his player option and become a free agent. I think Naz Reid's going to be the Brooklyn guy. I feel like Brooklyn's going to throw money at Naz Reid. Brooklyn has 8 players committed and like 90 million in space. And I feel like that's going to result in a Naz Reid Brooklyn trip. It just, if there's a guy that's young and could maybe be more than he is, like, I don't know if it's a good idea at all, but it feels like it's him.
Okay.
Next on the list is Miles Turner, who is just still out here uncommitted. No one loves Miles Turner. Like the Pacers love him, but they don't love him. They've shopped this man so many times, and he doesn't have a commitment now. And he still doesn't. Like every year, this man is just being brought to the altar and wondering if the answer is going to be yes or no. And he's got to do this every year.
Well, hold on. He did go on
living in space.
He did go on a podcast and describe his fit with a team he was not on. That did happen.
If you were in the store window every year for 7 years, wouldn't you flirt?
No, we chose you over Sabonis. Okay. We love you.
Oh, chose so much that extension was only a couple of years at middling value.
We gave you a raise.
No, get out of here. The most non-committal starting center out there. And then Pascal joined the team. They believed in him so much over Sabonis that Pascal arrived, and it's Pascal and Halliburton's team now. Oh, I was running out of breath there. So those are the 2 guys that are like of the free agency class, or of the age and production to create a thirst in the market. And there are really only 2 huge pocket spenders. Brooklyn has the biggest pockets in the world. They could sign 3 of these dudes. Brooklyn has no idea what their identity is next year. They are praying that somehow they end up in the top 3. And if they don't, this is like a weird nightmare for them to have that much space, that much non-committed money. And it's probably like the Cam Thomas show again next year. And they probably like extend. I guess you give another contract to blanking the like D'Angelo Russell. Thank you for the help, D'Angelo Russell. You probably give him another contract just for the hell of it to like have a team. So they're at the top of the list. Next up, Detroit Pistons have the space to add a guy and have a lot of considerations to like what that should be. Maybe they're a Miles Turner player. You know, I could see that. I also we have Miles Turner's takes in New Orleans. Been a lot of talk about like Miles Turner's the big that New Orleans should have gotten this whole time. We've flirted with Indiana before. We've had conversations about him before. And it's like, oh, well, we never did it. Well, nobody ever did it. And nobody ever did it because like Miles Turner's a very specific player. And even his own team doesn't know if they want that to be the starting 5 piece. Like his own team has been waffling on that for years. And that's how everybody else feels about it too. It's more like if I can get Miles Turner for a deal, that's pretty cool. So Detroit, though, intriguing with Cade, like with having like a power forward body that's like blossoming as the point guard. Wondering, I know you're a big Jalen Duren fan, so maybe this is heartbreak for you. Sorry, I didn't need to do that. That was unnecessary.
Turn in the corner. It's fine though. I can take it.
So third on the list is Bruce. And the money starts to dry up after those first two teams. So it would really be like, does Brooklyn or Detroit like have a bag for that man? Or is the next team willing to spend like their whole cap allocation or like part of their cap allocation, like half their MLE to give him like a $20 million a year offer? That's what I think Bruce comes down to. I think if Bruce is a market value because he gets squeezed out, because maybe you don't need the glue backcourt defensive everything kind of combination guy. Maybe there's not a fit there for the teams that have the money. Bruce is kind of a finishing piece in that way. Like he's a weird player in that I would like for my team to already be great and I add Bruce to it to make me super great rather than be a team that's reliant on Bruce to be one of my best 5 players. And so that maybe he gets squeezed. And if he gets squeezed and it ends up being like MLE or MLE and change, I could be very happy with him being a part of the rotation and staying here and just being the team that made that bet. I feel like he's a safe bet. But it would take some market conditions. Your thoughts?
Well, I'll say the other portion of the market is Bruce gonna just, where does he want to play? Because Bruce Brown
offers the most money.
But what if he doesn't?
He's only earned $56 million to this point in his career. I think he wants to follow the money.
But what if he can get more years for less money?
Definitely a consideration. Definitely, like he's at that point in his career. This contract could be the defining one. This might be the last big contract he gets.
So while you might have the money aspect, and that may be very important, of course it is. But what happens if I'd like to live here? I'd like to win. I'm not sure. Do
I'd like
you
to
want
get that third guaranteed year.
So it gets tricky. I mean, I think that's the elephant in the room that the Pelicans would have to beat. Have you done enough to make Bruce want to be here with enough money for enough years to make Bruce want to stay here? Or does Denver just call him? Hey, man, you want to come back?
For no money? That's the thing with Denver.
For some money.
I want to be in Denver, no doubt. He'd go back and play with Joker tomorrow.
For some
no
money.
doubt.
Not as much as you just made, but we have money.
We got more than them. That's like glorified minimum stuff over there. I think that one's tough. Like, that's the thing. I look at what the market just told him. I was pretty shocked that there was not a huge market for him out of Toronto. I think his year and the injury and like getting back from injury probably had something to do with it. We're also like decently removed from the Denver time now. And so people are probably like, you're also looking around at other guards and being like, who was getting major cash? Not really anybody. Apron land is weird. And I think people like him have been squeezed by it. So yeah, I just wonder. I don't see a lot of money out there for him. I agree with you though, that if there was like a, hey, we'll give you most of our MLE and we'll give you 3 years. And maybe we're sitting at like 12 million per year for 2 years. I don't know. Maybe we give him 3. He's only 28. I would just like to have like experienced adults featured in the team while we have all these young dudes. I think it helps a lot. I think that's part of what we see with Bruce and Olynyk. It's just nice to have guys that like have run so many plays that by default they know the right read because they've done it 100 times. And they can just improvise off of the experience they've had. And Bruce and Olynyk are both those guys. And we don't have a lot of those guys.
So you want to trade for Paul George?
No, absolutely not. Keep his knees away from me. Keep his knees, his back, and his microphone habits away from me. Keep him away. I loved Paul George. Nobody can bet on this anymore. You can't keep betting on this. Dude just came out here and completely excoriated the 76ers. We are not a team that wants to compete. What? We have not shown that we are a team that can compete. Wow. Speaking of which, Joel Embiid, knees gone. Yikes.
I did it again. I did it again.
Yeah, you're really good at finding like little pressure points. It's gone so bad for Paul the last couple of years now. That it's just like it just seems like we're doing this and the money's still doing this. So that's not a good marriage. It's not a good marriage. You don't want the money to be going up while the production and the availability is going down. That's usually not good. You look like you had something else going there. I am gonna quickly mention the Joel Embiid thing before we get out of here. Just like a quick little pseudo medical moment. Everyone should be terrified that he is having either a meniscus replacement or a hip surgery to alleviate pressure point. These are not good options for somebody who's never available. This is bad. This is real bad. This is like will likely never be the same kind of bad.
Oh,
it's not good. Meniscus is something so specific. It doesn't have a good blood supply. A lot of people tear it. Normally, what Embiid has tried to do in the past is not have any material cut out of the meniscus. He's tried to let it heal. And in the past, like I can tell you from personal experience, they don't heal. It's very, very rare. It's a very specific area on the meniscus that has a little bit of blood supply. And if you get a tear right there, you have the opportunity to heal naturally. But it's one very, very specific area of that little disc. That's not where his tear is. That's not where most people's tears are. And he tried to not have surgery, and then he needed surgery, and now he's injured it again. When they say replacement, bad news. And when they say, oh, we're actually not sure if it's replacement, it might be a hip surgery. This is like, it won't shock me if he misses half of next season. Really won't. And it feels like, congratulations on your MVP. That one time we got tired of Nikola Jokic. And that's been From the Wing. Thanks for coming, guys. Like, subscribe. Go to our YouTube channel. I never remember to say this stuff, so I'm going to tell you now. Follow the pod. Rate us. Subscribe. Look at me and Steve's faces. Tell us we're stupid. Tell us we're great.
Oh.
All those things. We're open all feedback.
Sure.
If you have anything you want to hear talked about, just say it in a way that's, not hyper confrontational, and I'll be happy to talk to you. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time, where you will once again be highly satisfied by our friends at Crescent Cano. Have a good one, guys.
Bye.